Bitcoin just broke a major resistance level. So we need to talk about the crypto market right now and discuss whether this is potentially a buying opportunity as Bitcoin starts to affirm itself back into the range. This has been a pretty substantial move for Bitcoin from the lows of Monday to the current level, taking us up 22%. It's actually Bitcoin's best day in 29 months' time after having one of its worst days in 29 months' time, pretty much reversing the entire dip with a market cap gain of plus $120 billion. We also saw stocks had their best day since November 2022, with many of the NASDAQ tech stocks putting in major gains. So let's talk about the market today and discuss how I'm personally trading it right now, as well as the altcoins that you should be looking at. If you do enjoy this type of content where I give you the latest crypto alpha and market updates to help you succeed in the market, make sure you click that subscribe and, most importantly, that post notification bell down below so you don't miss a single daily upload. I'm here to make sure that you succeed in this crypto cycle and maximize your profits. So not only did we see a strong day across the Bitcoin price and also the stock market, we also saw very strong inflows for the first time in around a week of almost $200 billion of capital coming into the Bitcoin spot ETF on Thursday. And hopefully we continue these inflows heading into today, which is Friday in the US. We did have a few days of major outflows last week, and this was part of the issues which were compounding alongside many of the macro factors resulting in the major Bitcoin dip. So it is good to see that the momentum is also shifting on that side. I think the reason for the extreme outflows were the geopolitical concerns and the yen carry trade concerns, which obviously proliferated through the market, meant that a lot of fund managers started to de-risk their Bitcoin exposure. Many of these are buying Bitcoin through the ETFs, and as a result, we saw the negative inflows starting to compound across the week. But now that the tide has turned a little bit for the stock market and the crypto market, these players that were sidelined now feel at least more comfortable to jump back into the market. Hence, the positive inflows starting to come again. You can see this tweet from Chris Bernisk saying here that sentiment reset and leverage flush, while most quality crypto assets put in significantly higher lows than we saw in 2023. Meanwhile, central banks globally are about to get forced into easing, a bit more turbulence possible in Q3, but regardless, a beautiful early bull setup. Well, let's talk about whether this is a beautiful early bull setup. Chris does talk about the possibility of a continued turbulent environment throughout Q3, but one thing to note is that Q4 is Bitcoin's best month, returning an average of 88% during this quarter since Bitcoin's inception, versus Q3, which is actually Bitcoin's weakest month, only averaging a 5.7% return. So Q3 was always going to be choppy, and Q4 was always in the plan here for a potentially strong cyclical period in the market. And there's nothing in the data to suggest that that is not going to be the case this time around. Chris also highlights the central bank easing that we are likely to see. Obviously, the Bank of Japan pulled the plug on its hiking cycle and decided to pull out the UNO reverse card, essentially deciding that it would try and calm the markets down a little bit after the extreme volatility that we did see earlier in the week. But this isn't just the Bank of Japan. Many central banks around the world, the European Central Bank, the US Federal Reserve are also looking at the possibility of simultaneous rate cuts. We do have the probabilities now swinging in favor of a 50 basis point rate cut, so a double rate cut. There is still a 47.5% chance that we see a 25 basis point rate cut, but nonetheless, September is the month where the Fed is officially pivoting. I like this post from Michael here saying that you're going to tell me that, one, Bitcoin just experienced its first 33% correction of the bull run, Sol corrected 45%, ETH 38%. Funding rates have fully reset. Supply overhangs like Gox, Jump, and Mt. Gox are behind us. Sentiment flipped to fearful. Alts hated, especially ETH. Business cycle is bottoming, not peaking. Fed expected to cut in September. Bank of Japan just took their finger off the trigger. US Treasury running a 6% budget deficit on the fiscal side during an election year. 8, crypto becoming an election issue, Trump announcing support for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. 9, major wealth managers now selling Bitcoin and ETH to their clients. We saw Morgan Stanley also pitching this yesterday via new ETF products. And 10, centralized firms that contributed to over-leveraged last cycle, such as BlockFi, Genesis, Celsius, being removed from the market. But seriously, you're going to tell me that and you want me to be bearish? Setup feels similar to September, October 2020 after Paul Tudor Jones called Bitcoin the fastest horse and Michael Saylor started buying Bitcoin via MicroStrategy balance sheet. Who has a contrarian take? Data, monthly active users on public blockchains and apps. As you can see, they've all been increasing. So I would largely agree with this sentiment, and I've spoken about this before. Right now, this feels like a major inflection point for the crypto market. It feels like something has shifted and we're on the precipice of something really special. However, of course, at the same time, you do have some shaky dynamics in the market, which have resulted in major shakeouts, namely the one on Monday, which sent Bitcoin and altcoins spiraling in terms of price. So what do you do in this environment where you have a clear fundamental macro setup, but you have choppy price action, which makes it hard to navigate? Well, let's talk about that right now. Let's talk about my strategy. Firstly, let's ask the question, is the most painful path for the market not down, but up? I want to read out this tweet from Nachi because I think it really sums up where the market is right now. They say, from the comments of my posts and my feed, I feel like a lot of you are lost after Black Monday and have no directions on the market right now. If you feel similar, listen to this tweet because I think many of you would maybe feel a little bit confused, with things somewhat looking positive longer term, but in the shorter term, price action doing its best to shake you out. There's a strong reaction from the bottom after the washout. Bitcoin is back to the prior resistance at 61K in only 3 days and is still holding strong. Price reacts extremely well. 4K green candle with good news today on the jobless claim and Putin legalizing crypto mining. Those were two of the catalysts which resulted in this pump alongside the strong ETF flows and the stock market rebound. That tells you there's an imbalance in demand and supply and people are underpositioned for longs. Most people are still looking for retests of lower lows. Funding rates still remain at the distress zone. Shorts piled at 59 to 60K. So the most painful path is not down. It's actually to keep going up. Another thing I noticed, Bitcoin has been outperforming NASDAQ since Black Monday, and NASDAQ is going to retest the long-term trend line for the 4th time soon. What do you think will happen to Bitcoin if NASDAQ breaks out above this trend line? It looks like a V-shaped reversal in the making. Bitcoin closes above 60K will lead to more fireworks. Firstly, I want to point out the significance of this move. It has been a major move to the upside. Paradise, who's one of the lead lower time frame traders in my Discord community, has absolutely smashed it during this period. So what we've been doing is longing a lot of the continuation plays on altcoins as they've started to climb out of that dip and start to make higher lows. And continuation trades are one of the easiest ways to play this market. Now, I actually wish I got on all of Paradise's trades. I didn't. I managed to hit a few, but luckily a lot of the members in the group here managed to hit big trades on Mew, Brett, Ton, Whiff, as you can see in front of you here. So I want to say well done to the community for not only navigating one of the toughest days in recent history in crypto, which was Monday, but also thriving in this environment and managing to pull out massive trades like some of the ones that you see in front of you. The Discord is now taking on some new members, so if you are interested in joining, I'll leave a link in the description below if you do want to join the Mars High Club and get the exclusive alpha there. I've been spending a lot of time in the Discord helping you guys out recently, obviously, because the market's been so volatile, and posting a lot of my shorter term trades there alongside the other contributors like Paradise. But I want to touch on my strategy now for a little bit, because if you watched yesterday's show, you would have known I talked about this 2-scenario setup that I was playing on Bitcoin. Either a retest of the lows if we rejected off 60 and formed a range. That's not what's happening. Scenario number 2 is happening right now, which was basically Bitcoin breaking above 60 and reclaiming. It looks to me like this could be a potential continuation play. Now, there's obviously a chance that this is a fake out, right? And this is just deviation above, and we end up coming back down below and playing into the range. I'm happy to be wrong in that scenario, and I'll adjust my trading style if need be. However, until proven wrong, I do have a sneaking suspicion, and this was scenario number 2, which I've been planning for the entire week, that this may be bullish continuation. And if that is the case, because that validation happens on a daily close above 60, then you could see something like this, where Bitcoin pulls down into this pocket. We have a retest of the 200 MA and the horizontal support, which is range low, and then we end up moving higher, and we actually target range high again. So that would basically make this entire move a deviation move below, just like we got in April and July, and this would be a continuation move to the upside here. And then you may, and this is the whole theory about the most painful path being up, right? As Nachi points out, you may end up pushing up and then rejecting off this level, making a lower high, right? And then coming back down and then wrecking all of the late longs who get in up here. That's why, as per my plan that I stated on yesterday's video and the day before, my strategy is to bid a retest, and we're about to get a daily close. So as soon as this candle closes, if it closes above, I'll start to cautiously bid altcoins in terms of trades, looking for continuation. This was resistance, the horizontal resistance, as well as the 200 MA, but this can also become now a strong support for continuation to the upside. So if it is continuation, let's now look at the altcoins that I'm looking to bid. I'm only bidding the strongest altcoins, not everything. The other thing to keep in mind is that I'm trading with invalidation. So I'm not long-term longing here. Let me explain what I mean. I do my long-term longs, so these are longs that I want to hold for potentially the entire bull market on major red days. So I speak about this a lot on the show. During capitulation weeks, like the week we got, that is where I'm interested in adding major long-term positions, like I did with my major Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol buys that I discussed on Black Monday. However, we are now in a scenario where my buying is contingent, just like my dip buying above 60 was contingent last time, on us actually holding range structure. Because if we do something like this, come up, and then instantly end up rejecting down, and this is just a fake out lower high move, then I don't want to get stuck in these positions and be holding them down for a retest of this low if we do get there, right? So any long that I am making right now, whether that be lower leverage or spot, and I'll do a combination of both, these longs are keeping in mind we have range low at 60, and invalidations will happen at a break below 60, a confirmed break. Those invalidations also need to line up not only with Bitcoin, but also the individual setups on the altcoins that I'm about to get into. So I'm always looking for confluence on Bitcoin and my altcoin setups. So I'm actually only going for altcoin setups right now, which are A, exhibiting relative strength, and B, have clear technicals that I can play off. I hope that makes sense for you guys, because you do need to differentiate when you enter a trade, not only the asset that you're buying or selling, but also the time frame that you're buying and selling on. Now, there's a chance that these assets that I end up buying as a trade end up becoming bull market holds. What do I mean by that? If that was somehow the bottom of the entire move, and we're just going up only from here, because we never confirm broke below 60K again in this hypothetical scenario, these positions actually become bull market holds, because what you can do is you can just keep moving your stop up and up and up as we go higher. Some of my best trades this cycle, like my Solana trade from $14, have been executing that strategy. So there's a chance that you don't get invalidated, and shorter term holds can become longer term holds, depending on if you're using leverage and if you've got high funding rates. If it's spot, you don't need to worry about that. But at least the time horizon at the time of entering is slightly shorter term. And shorter term can be a matter of weeks or maybe a month, but nonetheless not, let's say, with a 6-month time horizon. So what are the altcoins I'm most interested in longing? Let's break them down one by one. The first one's SUI. Relative strength over the last day has been ridiculous. It's up 30%. It's started to gain traction. It still hasn't really done much in the context of its weekly chart. It's only just making a move off the lows. But Raoul Pal is starting to shill it. That is a powerful person to start to develop a thesis around an altcoin. I actually like what the SUI ecosystem is developing. I think SUI is actually stronger than Aptos and offers a way for people to speculate, especially as Solana runs up in price, on another L1 with strong tech to potentially gain adoption. And a lot of the sell pressure unlocks, etc., have been flushed out of the market. It's one of the reasons why it did underperform for a period there. Interestingly, from a TA perspective, and keep in mind, a lot of these trades are just based on relative strength because I'm trying to capture the most upside from my buys. So we started to break above this diagonal trend here. This is actually looking like a clean break. We're currently getting a retest. But there are two major resistance levels I want to break above. One is the 200 MA on the daily. That has confluence with this resistance level here, which was the temporary high in June after its dead cat bounce and was also resistance into its major breakout and support on its first major dip after it made its local high for the year. So this is a level of significance. It's the 90-cent level. SUI may do something like this, where it breaks above, pulls back into the resistance now flipped into support level. The MA will look like something like this, right? It could move up, and then on the break of the MA, now you've broken past all resistance, diagonal resistance, horizontal resistance, and the moving average to potentially take SUI's price much higher to these levels here at $1.20. That is a setup that I would be looking at. You can do it in parts. So I might open my first long on the retest of 60K for Bitcoin. That has confluence with this level here, a retest of that level. Then my second entry might happen on the break of this level. And then my biggest entry, which is my highest conviction entry, would happen on the break of this level here, which would mean all three resistances are broken. And then you can move your stop up because by then your initial entry would already be in profit, and then that acts as a buffer for you to move your stop up. So there is trade execution that you need to keep in mind when you're opening a trade, especially when you're dealing with shorter term time horizons. You need to be a lot more precise with how you enter a trade. But when we talk about altcoins to long on a retest of 60, SUI definitely has to be on the top of the list given the relative strength it's shown. Remember, when it comes to longing, you want to long the strongest tokens in the market, as they will typically tend to exhibit outperformance on the continuation of an uptrend. Solana is another one. I don't need to go too much into this, but it's on my watch list clearly because of the mindshare it commands. For the altcoin system play of my choice, it's Jupiter. I would want Jupiter to hold above this level, however. And obviously we want Bitcoin. And for any of these longs to be valid, Bitcoin needs to hold above 60K as well, right? But if it does, and Jupiter also holds above that level, that's the level I would get in. And if you can't see the chart, if you're on your mobile, it's around 89 cents, 90 cents to be safe. TON is another interesting one. It has broken above its resistance level. A pullback into this range would be great as long as Bitcoin holds above 60. But either way, I think if Bitcoin holds above 60 and continues to make its move, TON has commanded so much mindshare that a move back up to 750, I think, is going to happen quite quickly. Now I want to talk about a few meme coins because these were some of the strongest bounces. You always got to look at the strongest bounces from a dip to work out what could potentially outperform on the next leg up. MOG, for example, rallied 100% from the bottom of the dip to where it is currently. POPCAT even more, 150%. I like the MOG trade because you, as I said earlier, have a clear technical setup that could correspond with Bitcoin. One is this horizontal here at the 1.3 level, which we are currently pulling back into. If Bitcoin pulls back into 60, that may well coincide for a nice confluence entry on MOG. And then you'd be looking at a play to target the 1.8 level there. And these ranges are currently 45% apart. So if you're using like 3x leverage, for example, you're going to make 130% on that trade. The other thing I'm looking for that could potentially happen sooner, and this might be another validation for me, is re-entering this uptrend, which was actually a flag. If you want to draw it in as a flag, it's basically like this here, where it condensed into this price action here. It ended up breaking down, but that could be deviation back into the flag pattern before breaking out to the upside, because technically that is a bull flag. Sorry, I know the charts look messy, but hopefully that gets the point across. So MOG is a nice one that also has a couple nice technical setups. Of course, you should draw these in your own time on your charts and also have your bounce list. As you can see, my bounce list is here. And I'll make it even bigger for you to see. Now let's look at POPCAT. So here's the thing. If you're playing this whole 60K theory, your initial entries would happen on a retest of 60. That's what's currently happening right now. Daily close, confirm above, and then you'd have your invalidation below, and hopefully that aligns with altcoin technical invalidation as well. So these are your initial entries, of course. But there's another scenario where Bitcoin keeps moving higher and you get pullbacks, and on the pullbacks you look to add with a similar theory of cutting below 60. If that is your strategy, then POPCAT would come into play as a secondary or a third long. Why is that? Because it's already significantly above by a factor of 47%, the zone where I would have liked to have bought POPCAT. So the next zone it needs to clear is actually a break zone. So I would long other stuff first that's at a better technical level, but once it breaks, it may pull back into this zone, and that could also correspond with a Bitcoin pullback for you to get in. You'll notice I like to validate across Bitcoin and altcoins, and that's just because I don't want my margin of error to be too big on my trades, because right now, the margin of error on a POPCAT trade into resistance is 30%. If anything, I'd be looking to offload some spot POPCAT if you did buy the dip right now. NEIRO is another one. It actually wicked into the range high level here, which is now support. This was a fantastic buy, and the fact that it got bought up so aggressively, I did mention this is a buy on the show 2 days ago, by the way, so you should have gotten this entry. I also showed you that level. If we do get another pullback into that zone, that is a nice support zone that is starting to form. In this level here, you can see liquidity got eaten up super quickly in that zone. So I would be watching that on NEIRO. There's a few RWA alts which are also interesting. PENDLE, similar to POPCAT, maybe one that I play on a break. ONDO is slightly better because it's now holding above its previous range low. Remember this stablecoin type price action we got from ONDO where it was condensed in this like 5% range between 70 cents and 85 cents? Well, it's currently reclaiming the low of that range. So for me, as a more immediate long, this makes more sense over PENDLE. You've also got TAO, similar to POPCAT. This would be maybe a secondary long, but this also has relative strength. And like SUI, you've also got this 200 MA, which it's about to come up and break. So remember, guys, I'm not saying just long everything blindly as Bitcoin holds above 60. It's about doing it in preferential order of what you think will exhibit strength first, and then you can get into other stuff as their setups present. It's always good to be patient here, but this overall list is a relative strength list. Let me give you an example. I think MOG's actually underperformed POPCAT on the bounce, right? And it's slipped down to, I think, rank 3 in terms of cat coins. MOG was rank 1 in terms of cat coins last week, and it's still shown relative strength. So I would prefer to long MOG first, which also has a better technical setup, versus POPCAT in the shorter term. Hopefully that gives you a good example. PEPE is actually another one, right? Because it just broke above its 200 MA on the daily, and a key resistance now turned to support level. This is one of the more immediate longs that I would also look at making, targeting profit taking on this next level here of 1093. Now, some of these trades may be invalidated in a couple of days if Bitcoin confirms and then it's just a fake out and it goes back down below. Some of these trades may never validate if Bitcoin somehow nukes down in the next 3 hours and closes the daily in the red. So when it comes to this type of trading, it is really reliant on conditional outcomes, right? Conditional being the technical setup has to align with the fundamentals. The fundamentals are what I'm showing you. The strong altcoins fundamentally should outperform. The technicals are what give you validation to enter a trade. You need to merge the two to become a profitable trader. Another one I'm watching closely is actually Ethereum. If it can reclaim the 2.8 level, that would be an interesting zone for me for ETH, because it's just being so hated right now. It's the most overhated I think I've seen Ethereum in a long time. And I'm kind of a bit of a contrarian when it comes to sentiment. When sentiment is really bad for a coin, and conversely, when it's really bullish for a coin, that's when I typically get either bullish or bearish. So for ETH, it makes me bullish, seeing all the bearishness. You can also see that ETH actually outperformed Bitcoin prior to yesterday on ETF flows. It has had a couple days of negative, but in the early days, it was pretty much only outflows. So to see Ethereum ticking in the black, in stock market speak, for inflows over the past couple of days is an encouraging sign. And I would just be monitoring this on Farside. You can Google Ethereum ETF flow on Farside to see if we can get a few more consecutive days of positive inflows for ETH, because that was a major catalyst that drove Bitcoin from 40K when the ETF first launched all the way up to 70K. So Ethereum is also on my watch list, but it's a little bit behind and it hasn't been outperforming. So maybe it's not a sexy trade for all of you out there. One thing I have been doing is posting the video alpha before these YouTube videos go live on the Mars High Club. So what I do is actually get the transcripts 2 hours before I upload these videos. I run them through an AI summary bot, and then it basically gives you all the alpha from the videos condensed into one write-up. So for anyone that's interested in that, before the shows go live, you can access that in the Mars High Club. I'll leave a link in the description to that below. Naturally, because it's very hard for me to make a YouTube video every time there's confirmation on a trade, I'm going to be posting all my trade updates in the Alpha channel in the Mars High Club. Just like Paradise has been killing it in his own crypto trades channel, posting all of his trades over the past few days, which, as you can see, have played out really well. So of course, when I can, I'm going to update you on YouTube. But the point of the Mars High Club is to have the snappy alpha as setups start to present, because they can happen at any time of the day, right? And we have traders from all around the world, including myself. I pretty much sit on Discord all day to answer questions and post setups and monitor things. So if you are interested in a bit more hand-holding and some of the exact setups that I've talked about today, I'll leave a link in the description below to the Mars High Club. And we are limiting the amount of members that are allowed in that group to make sure that the alpha is exclusive for those that are most serious about leveling up their crypto trading. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll give you an update next time there is something to update on. I wasn't going to upload today, but I thought it was necessary given the fact that Bitcoin did have a major move, and I wanted to give you an execution update based on the last video that I did, because I'm sure there'd be a lot of questions from last video, considering Bitcoin is now playing out the second scenario that I highlighted, which admittedly wasn't the most likely scenario, but I'm here for it because bullishness is always better for the market than bearishness, and it's much easier to trade bullishness in the market than bearishness. So I'm not complaining. I'll see you later in the week. Might do a live stream on Sunday for those that are interested. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.